Welcome to Business Talk here on Business Tech, South Africa's #1 business news website. And there's obviously all this geopolitical tension globally in the air, but South Africa actually looks to be a net beneficiary of continued rising commodity prices. It'll certainly support our current account and the rand. And we've got inflation too, also stalking the market, petrol and food soaring, questions around how the central bank might approach this from a rate hiking perspective. I already see internationally the forward rate market saying that they reckon the Fed is going to ease off on the accelerator when it comes to rates. What does all of this mean for residential property? Well, Yael Geffen is CEO of Geffen Sotheby's International Realty. And Yael, you've certainly got your finger on the pulse of the residential property market. Welcome to the show. What makes property such a great investment option in 2022?
Thank you for having me here, Michael. It's a privilege. Well, if you look at the world that we currently live in, there's a lot happening, right? Pandemics, what's happening in the Ukraine, there's just so much volatility, and property is one of those investments that's a bit of a sure bet. It's a greater buffer than the stock market, and perhaps any kind of appreciation or depreciation in currency. So that's why property investment is a good one. And over the years, it's a sound bet, and especially now, because we're about to head into a boom, and the property market around the world is fantastic. Our global group, Sotheby's International Realty, recorded a historic high last year with $204 billion globally. And just to give you an idea, the year before was 109 billion. So you can see what's happened to the property market worldwide.
Yeah, and I think it tends to happen through periods of uncertainty and volatility. People go back into physical assets. We're seeing people going into gold. People like to get back into physical assets. You can kick the bricks. It's tangible. We've got strong property rights. And so you've got all of the underpinnings that make a really good property market. What we haven't probably had, Yael, over the last few years is really significant outperformance when it comes to property prices. And in the US, I mean, people, they were naming their firstborn on the sale agreement just to be able to get that deal over the line. It's such a hot property market. What advice do you have for South Africans who want to begin their property investment journey now, given the local context that we find in the South African property market?
It's interesting you say that, because you think of all the distressed sales and foreclosures that were happening previously, and when the market turns, it's an exciting time, because then the sellers start to benefit. And right now it's been a buyer's market for a long time with a lot of pent-up demand, still a lot of savvy buyers. But if you're looking to invest in property, that old adage, location, 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 position, 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 it couldn't be more accurate. So if you're on a budget, rather go for a smaller home with less features, but in the best location. And when I say location, I mean an up-and-coming neighborhood. You don't want to invest in a property where there might be a decay in the neighborhood, in either the look, the feel, the community, potential crime. So definitely location, and you can always invest further if you don't have the means to buy a superb property in a superb location. You can get a small property in a really prime location and spend, what you can on your budget in terms of renovations and upgrading, so it suits your lifestyle and your family's lifestyle.
And also use that then as a stepping stone, because what you would find is, if you choose that location properly, there's limited supply. If you look in a good neighborhood, generally they're zoned in such a way that more people want to get into it. And so you see really good appreciation on that asset. A big theme that we've seen during COVID has been DIY. And I think it's natural. We've been at home, we've been Zooming, we've been on Teams, and you see that crack in the wall and you want to fix it up. You maybe want to add another room. What are the best upgrade and renovations that add the most value to a property relative to their cost? Because there's that other thing that you can do in property, and you can obviously overcapitalize and put too much money in that you won't get out. How do you view this?
So when we were unleashed, and I use the word unleashed, with a little bit of a smile, because we were able to finally walk around our neighborhoods. We were locked in for such a long time. And I remember walking around, and it seemed like everyone was doing a paint job, some home gardening. There was just natural upgrading and renovating. And it was quite wonderful to see, the spirit of humans kind of coming together and fixing their homes and making them homes pretty, because here they are, they're not going anywhere. So we are seeing a lot of renovations and a lot of upgrades, but not all renovations are equal. And as you said, Michael, you certainly don't want to overcapitalize when it comes to renovations. So it depends. If you're doing it to enjoy your home and you plan to be there, excuse the hardy does, and you plan to be there for a very long time, then you don't mind spending a little bit more, because you're going to get the return on investment or the return on enjoyment, right? Because right now we're having a bit of a staycation at the moment, and that's not going to change much. So people are looking for granny flats, home offices, also, in terms of open plan living and creating more open spaces. That's changed a bit. It's now broken plan, where you want to have your kids in a section and you want to have a bit of a section, but you still want the flow to the open entertainment areas. And if you're looking to renovate or upgrade to sell, be careful, because you certainly don't want to spend over a quarter of the value of your property doing this. Otherwise, it's too much. It's seen as too much. So if you've got R1 million property, you certainly don't want to spend more than 250,000 Rand. And now I can see you looking at me and you're saying, but where are the places to spend? So I always say the kitchens and the bathrooms are key. Those are really sound places to invest in. And as long as you don't choose the most upscale fittings, I think that's where people go wrong. They think, okay, well, we live in a nice home. Let's get smeg fittings for the kitchen. Now, if you're not in an upmarket area, and you don't need that excess, you really don't. If you're in a prime upmarket location, yes. So it's good to team up with the realtor who can actually advise you as well, because they know what sells and what people look for when they move. So kitchens, bathrooms, definitely carpeting. If it's dirty and old, you want to uplift that. You want to put in new floors, and you certainly don't want to overcapitalize on something like a pool, because a pool requires a lot of maintenance. And when people choose to exactly. You have a pool.
In terms of return on enjoyment, I'm putting a lot more effort in than enjoyment I'm getting out of the pool at the moment. But, it is one of those things that South Africans, we love our pools. But a very important point to keep in mind, that kind of trade-off. I want to come back to the kitchen, though, and just interrupt you for your stream of thought. The kitchen's a really interesting one for me, because when we upgraded our kitchen, we kind of justified the cost, because it cost quite a bit. It certainly wasn't a quarter of the value of the property, but we justified it by saying, you know what, this is the kitchen where we're going to spend the bulk of our time as a kind of cohabiting unit, because my partner and I aren't married, but divorced, different families, getting all the kids together. This is where we're going to spend all of our time, and getting them all around the island in the kitchen. We kind of justified it that way. And you know what? It's panned out exactly like that. I think we probably spend the time that we're all together more than 50% of the time in the kitchen. So you've just got to think about, the lifestyle that you're leading.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because in terms of any upgrades or renovations, the kitchen's a showstopper, because especially now, like you say, everyone gathers around the kitchen. So if you've got that island, like you mentioned, you can all the whole family gather around and feel comfortable, and especially if it's light, bright, and airy. We like to use that in real estate: light, bright, and airy. And there's a lovely feel and a family feel, and the fittings are beautiful, and it's easy to cook, especially now. You want gas with everything that's happening. And some people are also into their gardens at the moment because they're wanting to live off the grid and not depend on anything right now. So the kitchen is really a good place to invest, especially if you use it, which you do.
Yeah, and as you say, gas, getting off grid, gas generators. Fortunately, we've got town gas, and so we've got a Generac generator. The next thing is to go and dig a borehole with the way water is going in this country. What are some of the top trends that you're seeing in the South African property industry today? A lot of the trends that we saw through COVID, I felt related to people realizing that you weren't quite as rooted to maybe Johannesburg as you previously thought you were. Now you can work remotely. So let's go live down in Belito, for example. What are some of the trends that you're seeing now in 2022?
Definitely that immigration trend is still in full flux. We have a lot of clients emigrating from Joburg, just like you say, that have realized, hey, I can do this from Knysna or, the Garden Route, Langebaan, Paternoster. I can go live my retired life right now and still work at the same time. So everything's lifestyle. It's still lifestyle. Lifestyle is a huge trend. And those coastal areas are certainly booming, like you say, the Belitos and the Western Capes. And then you've got that multi-plan living, which is certainly not going away. Multi-generational living is also happening right now because of COVID. People are wanting to get together and be closer to each other, not necessarily in the same house, but Granny, you go there, and kids, there's your playroom, and so cottages, definitely work pods, workspaces, off the grid for sure, boreholes. The rainwater tanks, solar is obviously huge, and that's not going anywhere. And off the grid living is a huge one, and using a lot of natural materials. People are wanting to feel quite natural at the moment, I think, because we've been so caged in. So you'll see a lot more plants, you'll see a lot of wood, some stone, ceramics. We've had to bring kind of the world and nature into our surroundings. But where we are a little behind, Michael, is compared to the States, everything is smart technology. Well, not everything, but that's really where it's headed. So you get your smart fridges. It'll tell you when your milk's done. So for people like you and me who like coffee, I don't take milk, so I don't need that. But it's wonderful to have this technology to enhance your lifestyle. So we're a little bit behind there. But that's definitely a future trend. I mean, you could be traveling to your new home, and you've kept your Joburg home and you're renting it out and getting a nice return on investment. And you're seeing that there's stuff happening in the home due to cameras, potential crime. So it's amazing how smart technology can enhance our lives with property.
Yeah, I mean, that's one that's featured. Sadly for us, we've seen a spike in crime, but the cost of installing really smart technology systems and cameras. I mean, you can go now down to the Leroy Merlin, which is just also another phenomenal new entrant into the South African market, and kit your house out with a very latest up-to-date camera app to your phone. You can control it remotely, and gone are the days where that would set you back 100,000 Rand. I mean, you're talking a tenth of that probably now. So a lot of these things are becoming a lot more accessible. And what we did when we bought in Park View was redo the floors, and we love wood, and so we wanted to do the kind of Oregon pine. New, it's quite pricey. You can also get those secondhand, repurposed, and the tongue and grooves, are in really good nick, and you can do it also by saving significantly. So there are ways to do that are smart as well. Do you have any hot tips for South African property investors from the insights that you've gained through all of these years at Yael Geffen?
So definitely buying to rent, I think, is always a good option, especially right now with what's happening. I mean, our interest rates are still relatively low, even though they've gone slightly up. They're still relatively low, and I believe in doing that for sure. And it also helps you in the long run with capital gains, helps pay off your bond. So that's a good one. I do like your idea of the wooden floors. I'm not a carpet person. I feel like carpets are passe. I mean, yes, they're nice and luxury, perhaps if you go to a hotel or something, but the upkeep and the maintenance and the dirt and the fuss. So I'm like you. I would invest in flooring, but I love the fact that you mentioned Leroy Merlin, and you can. I love those stores. Chamberlain's, Leroy Merlin. You don't have to go and spend a fortune and get a consultant to come and do your smart home. You just have to do some research. That's all it is. Yeah. Remember the olden days with generators? Remember people were paying 80,000 Rand for a generator, and now you can get inverters. So it's out there. And I don't know if you like lemon meringue pie and if you've ever been to Chamberlain's, but I love lemon meringue pie, and I have a very good one there, Michael.
I'm a big fan. I'm going to be going to Chamberlain's.
I know it's a very random location, but I've been to every lemon meringue pie shop in the whole of Johannesburg, and the little coffee shop there, they've got it just right. So that's just a little another little thing that I can share.
Well, that's it, and property, that's the thing. Property is so much more than an investment, because you're investing in your home, and you do these little things to create a space that really should be a nurturing space, a space in this environment where, as you say, we're not traveling. Who knows what's happening in Europe? Are we going to get back to traveling anytime soon? We were hoping to at the back end of the pandemic, and then it looks like we're on the cusp of World War III. So, investing in your property. And I think this is one time we're actually very grateful to be on the southern tip of Africa when we're away from all of that geopolitical risk. So on that note, Yael Geffen.
They say your home is a machine for living. And, it's got to be more about the brick and mortar. It's about the life that you create within it. So if you love where you live, and you create that space where every time you feel like you come home, you've arrived, then you've nailed it.
Yeah, I think that couldn't have summed it up better myself. Yael Geffen, CEO of Lou Geffen Sotheby's International Realty. Thanks so much for sharing your insights into the property market. As you mentioned earlier, interest rates still at 5-decade lows. I certainly can't see the heat and the energy dissipating outside the residential property market anytime soon. Great to share your insights with the audience here on Business Tech with Business Talk.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.